January 9th, 2019, I put out the very first episode of turning Pokemon into superheroes, and that video basically set the template for all of the cool stuff as other cool stuff videos on PopCross Studios. Then I did 3 more episodes and a spin-off episode for specifically Sword and Shield characters, and about 5 months ago, this whole series just kinda stopped. Why? I don't know, basically I just had a bunch of other ideas that I really liked and it just didn't really happen, but now it's back! So in this episode, I'm taking 6 Pokemon, largely from requests and suggestions on a community post I did a few days ago, and I'm turning them into superheroes. And I think this is gonna look even cooler now with my new improved art style. First up, I had to go with Swampert. He wasn't one of the most requested characters to get turned into a superhero. I think Potato1423 and a few other people requested him, but I couldn't resist going with him in this episode because he's one of my 3 favorite Pokemon, and it's crazy that I haven't superheroified him yet. I mean, thinking about it, Feraligatr is my favorite Pokemon, and I haven't turned him into a superhero either, but I had some better ideas for Swampert right off the bat. I was picturing this character living in a same kind of world and stories as Aquaman and Black Manta. I had both of their designs in mind while I was working on this one, although he doesn't really end up looking that much like either of them. I just pictured him going on the same kinds of adventures as Aquaman does. And I also picture this character working alongside his sidekick, Mudkip, who is the Mudkip superhero from the previous episode of Pokemon as Superheroes. And with this one, design-wise, I decided to have those orange, kind of puffed out bits on Swampert being kind of like the armored parts of this character. Not necessarily armored, but like thicker padding to protect those parts. Realistically, if that's the case for this character, I should have had his chest part go a little bit higher, but I really like the design of having it a bit lower, and you can see to add in a little bit more high contrast parts on the character, I added some thick black linings around those orangey, more armored parts of the character. And in terms of the finished result of this one, I love how the proportions turned out. They feel very, very me. You know, partway between comic booky and cartoony. So I hope you all like our Swampert superhero, and feel free to name him in the comments. Now, I had no idea just how popular Magmortar was, but he got suggested by a bunch of people, by MinFam, who, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, who I think had one of the most liked comments on the post where I asked people who I should turn, and Will Richardson and a few other people requested him, and I was like, alright, well I've got some easy inspiration there. He's a fire Pokemon with some, like fire cannons on his hands. So originally I was thinking a little bit along the lines of Cyborg from Teen Titans, but I pretty quickly leaned away from that and started thinking a little bit more My Hero Academia style. And I picture this character as someone who has fire constantly exploding out of their extremities, their arms, their legs, their head, probably even shoulders, and the suit that he wears contains all of that and stops that from happening, and he can wear it under his regular clothes. But then obviously when he's superheroing about, he doesn't wear anything over it. And he's got these devices on his forearms that can channel all of the fire into his body, into those spots, and when he activates them, they open up and flower out like Magmortar's hands kind of do, and he can shoot explosive blasts of fire. I also imagine that whoever made the suit for him gave him a mask and helmet, but he really liked the look of having the fire kind of pouring out of his hair, so he doesn't wear the mask and just has kind of singed black paint over his eyes in place of a mask. I don't know that this one ended up that My Hero Academia looking, probably a little bit more old school Marvel DC, but either way, I love how the rendering turned out. I think he's super cool looking, so I hope you all like him as well. Someone name him Magmortar Superhero. Now, part of the reason I wanted to bring back this series was because of Toxtricity. I kept seeing Toxtricity, and I love the design so much, and I knew it would make such great fuel for turning into a superhero. And in terms of character inspiration, I was thinking a little bit along the lines of Electro meets a bit of Captain Marvel meets a bit of the version of Wonder Woman that wore a leather jacket. All those were kind of spinning around my head as I was designing this one, and I do really like how this one ends up turning out. I obviously also go for a little bit of a punk rocker kind of vibe. And speaking of inspiration for this episode, another reason that I wanted to bring it back is because of some videos over on the awesome art channel Subjectively, who, if you haven't checked them out, I highly recommend it, because Jack Burke, or Magic Jack Art on Instagram, who I'll link Subjectively's channel and his Instagram in the description. He's done a whole bunch of videos and commissioned drawings where he turns Pokemon into armor sets, and the designs are so incredible. Again, linked in the description. I highly recommend you check out his Instagram and their YouTube channel. Just so much awesome stuff on there. But anyway, I was really inspired by that artwork for this video. And going into this one, I tried to not reference his Toxtricity because it was really, really awesome, but obviously I didn't want to just rip off his design elements, and I think I ended up making mine different enough. One of my favorite parts of this one is where the lighting inspiration comes from. And you can see I kind of bring it in and out as I'm working a little bit earlier on, but there's a big tendril of electricity going in between the character's hands, sparking off her fingers, and that just lights everything. And I really like when there's just one solid inspiration for the lighting on the character. Obviously, I had to think a little bit about how the lighting was coming off of the head lightning, but I kind of just tried to ignore that a little bit. I lightened up the areas around there a bit more, but I wanted the main lighting to really be coming from her hands. I think it produced a cool result, and I hope y'all do too. Toxtricity Superhero. Now with Mewtwo, inspiration-wise, I was thinking a little bit along the lines of a psychic Green Lantern kind of character, and I think that works decently well. This is one of the more simple designs, but I think it works. I was originally thinking a little bit more armor around the character, but the only place I end up putting armor is in the helmet, and I think that ends up working. You can also see I also, in place of Mewtwo's tail, I knew I needed something that was the kind of visual equivalent of that. I gave him a sort of scarf belt kind of thing, sort of comic book Captain Marvel inspired, where it's like a scarf belt that has a big sort of tail to it. I mean, not a tail, but you know what I mean. And I think that worked decently well. I really like how the helmet turns out on this one. I took a little bit of inspiration from Armored Batman and from Spider-Man in the black lining around the eyes, and obviously just from Mewtwo's actual eyes. And I knew pose-wise I wanted to have one hand kind of out in a bit of a thoughtful psychic kind of pose, as if the character's levitating something off in the distance. And overall, like I said, I like how the design turns out, and I think the lighting from the psychic energy ball in the character's hand is kind of cool and does nice lighting across the character. I think my only problem with this one is I picked a not so great pose and expression for it, because it just doesn't really scream powerful, and Mewtwo is such a powerful character that I feel like he should have been a little bit more stiff and upright and having the arm farther extended. But I don't know, I hope you all like it anyway. Again, someone can name it in the comments. Here is our Mewtwo Superhero. Next up, we've got Darkrai, who, on the post where I asked people which Pokemon I should turn into superheroes, Spiral Clintar115 said that I should turn Darkrai into some kind of 90s style anti-hero. That was the most liked comment, and I was like, alright, I'm on it. And admittedly, it was a little bit tricky coming up with an idea, because as much as I really like Darkrai's design, there's not a ton to pull from. It's a relatively simple design, but I think it ended up working well, although admittedly, I end up redrawing a part of this character's design, specifically the whole head situation. After I finished, I screen recorded it so you can see what I did, but there was, well, we'll get to it when we get to that part. I really did try to lean into the 90s anti-hero style. Obviously, my style doesn't really look that much like the generic 90s comic style, because that was very edgy, lots of intense line work, but I still think it comes together well with that sort of vibe. And this kind of has a bit of vibes of both the Mewtwo drawing and the Toxtricity drawing, where I've got the character with sort of a lightning-y energy ball between her hands that I was going for a bit of a shadow ball effect, but as I was drawing that, I was like, wait, Shadow Ball doesn't really cast light, does it? It's, you know, a Shadow Ball. It should almost absorb light. But I ended up cheating that a little bit, and I really wanted to have the lighting coming from that energy ball because I just love that sort of look. So I went with that, and I think it worked particularly well for how her eye ends up turning out, and it's kind of like off to the side, and it's the one brighter bit on the darker side of the character. And now we're at the part I was referencing earlier where I redraw the character's head situation, specifically getting rid of the white hood, because originally that had been inspired by Moon Knight from Marvel Comics, but I'd made it longer and pointier to look kinda like Darkrai's head situation. And then after I finished, I realized, oh yeah, a pointy white hood can draw some very, very unpleasant associations, and I want this to look like a cool anti-hero that you'd want to root for, not like a terrible human being. So I got rid of the pointy white hood and gave the character a cool, kinda smoky, long white ponytail, and I think that looks a lot better anyway. Finally, we have got Houndoom, who I've considered for a bunch of different episodes in the past and never gotten around to, and I was like, alright, it's finally time to do Houndoom as a superhero. And have you ever heard the saying, save the best for last? Because I did not do that. I mean, this one, it's not bad, it's just not great. It turns out a little bit boring looking, but I think the main problem with it is actually what I do with the pose, and this is something I haven't actively thought about as much until after I finished this one, but the character is looking off to the right, so that's where our eyes are gonna go with her, but most of her drawing and design is in behind the character. So that's not really great. I should have had her head kind of turned the other way to draw us towards the rest of her body, but I still like the drawing enough. It's just I don't think it's as great as the other ones in this episode. I really like how a lot of these drawings have turned out. And design-wise, I was thinking this character was kind of like a young teen anti-hero who's just breaking into the superhero game, trying to show off her stuff, and I wanted to make it seem like she tries to confuse people about whether her tail and horns are coming from herself or from her costume. Like, they are coming from the costume, but she wants people to think that maybe she is some kind of devil girl to really, scare her enemies in the same kind of way Batman does. And like a lot of these other ones, I had one kind of energy attack in the character's hands that lights the rest of the character. So let me know what you think. Maybe I'm being too hard on it, but here is our Houndoom superhero. Okay, I'm definitely not gonna wait this long again to do another Pokemon as Superheroes episode, because this was super fun. I forgot how much I love these episodes. So make sure you're subscribed and got the bell rung to get notified when another one of these is coming out. Also, I know the last episode was a long time ago now, but I asked people in the comment section to name our last episode's superheroes from Pokemon. And now, I'm gonna read out my favorites. So our Lucario superhero was named Aura Warrior by Kaheem Williams. Absol's hero was named Crisis by Dragonchild. Our Chestnut was named Chesto Chunk by Lego Lantern Studios. Mudkip was fittingly named Mudkid, as mentioned earlier, by Aiden Hasten? I'm probably saying a few people's names wrong, I apologize. Our Mega Charizard was named Cinderace by Giovanni M. Both of our Groudons, regular and primal, were named by Lucas Edwards. We had Groundbreaker and Infernal Breaker. Sandslash was named the Desert Claw by the JJ Blizzard. Grovyle was named Sidewinder by Matthew Marchbanks. And finally, Blaziken was named Punky Rooster by Dragon Myrrh. Thought that one was a nice, funny one. And of course, I'm going to be going through the comments again this time to see what names he came up with for this episode's superheroes. Sure, there's going to be some good stuff in there. And while I'm doing my ending ramble anyway, here's a teaser for Monday's episode. I mean, I'm probably giving more away than I usually do, but it's a Venomized episode and something I'm super excited about. So get hyped for that. But that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Last day to submit for this month's community redraw is Sunday, March 22nd, so get those in soon. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Goodbye.